morning, good afternoon, good evening, race fans, sim fans, RC fans, racing at 393. So getting to the point now of, after all the advice I've been given and tips and bits and pieces, we're getting pretty close now to final setup. And this video is going to go over some various things that I'm going to be checking, not necessarily altering so much, because the kit's built to stock. The only thing that I've upgraded as such is the carbon chassis, what's that called on there, the camber beam, the camber, the caster, is the kingpins laying back or forward. So the kingpin is what the front wheel pivots on, and it pivots round. Not sure how to adjust that. I will have to have a look. Got a rough idea, but again, however it's set, it is set stock, so there's not much else I can do with that. I'm trying to keep it as stock as I can, and I've read quite a bit about it online, various different 112 pan car experts, if you like. I was listening to a guy yesterday, and he went through some bits and pieces. He races for, is it X-Ray, or he works for X-Ray? Don't know his name. But he sounds like he knows what he's talking about. So, as far as I'm concerned, I will listen to him. I'll take what he says as gospel, if you like. So this is pretty much stock. So there's a couple of things I've picked up on. I'm just going to move the camera. So there's an important common denominator which I hear a lot of, to do with the tweak. Now I've got a tweak station, although I don't intend on using that at the moment whilst doing this part of this video. Now these cars do run dampers, but the back part, which is the bit that pivots, which is what the motor is and the rear axle is fixed to, I will call that like a subframe. That's how I will term that. It's probably called something else, something far more simple than that. But it's the bit that, the only part of the suspension it has is it moves, it tweaks. That, along with the front of the car, gives you the handling, because it's the only way that these cars can twist, or there is a downward sort of suspension anyway, hence this centre bar. But then it's got the tweak, which there's a couple of springs under here, one this side and one that side. Again, they're stock. It has got front springs. There's no damping as such on the front, apart from the oil that you put on the kingpin, or the pivot, whichever you call it. It is a kingpin, because the front hub is how you steer, so it pivots around the kingpin. So you've got, this is stock as well, so the suspension stock, they've been oiled. The back's got standard springs here, standard springs there. They are set to what the instructions say. How you adjust them, well, I'll go over that in a minute, because I'm new to this part of it. But this can be adjusted with this spring. This is a standard spring in the back. I think I might have read somewhere that you might need to change that from stock. Don't know, but I'm going to leave it as it is. And I've been told that the springs that are on each side here, the stock springs are the best way to go. Now the bit I have worked out, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you this because the camera's, it just isn't suitable whilst it's sat on here, but as soon as you lift this bit, as soon as you lift it off, it should just be sitting on the spring in here, for balance. You don't want the spring under tension when lifting one corner of the car. I have checked, and it's got to be just, well, I've 2 videos I've watched of people that clearly race, so they would know, would they not? They've both said in different terms that the springs under here can't be bound. So when you lift that side up, it shouldn't be still under tension on that side and vice versa. That makes sense. It's got to be sitting square, and I have checked this. So I had the carp on side, I just moved the spring, or actually had it at an angle, and I looked, and just as you start to lift that, it comes off. So to me, that's set how it should be set. So I'm going to leave that as it is. I've got nothing to point with. I'm going to use this. So down here, just below that spanner, there's a grub screw, if you like. And that's where the spring seat is, or the top of it. What do you call that? I don't know. The seat is where it perhaps at the bottom. But anyway, that, I understand if you turn that grub screw, am I right in thinking that it puts the spring under a little bit of tension? And bearing in mind, you don't need it, we're not talking like I would on perhaps coilovers on the road, where you can do 2 or 3 turns of the platform to tension the, to get the right height on your race car or road car, whatever you've got. So on that there, we are talking minute adjustments. So if you wind that grub screw down, does that tension that spring? It's the only way that you can adjust that this bit on there, or it is. I mean, it makes sense that would, but that's not even moving the back part here. When I do that, it's very minuscule if it is. So that's just a bit of understanding from my side, a little bit of lateral engineering basic knowledge. I'm not saying where it has to go is where I put it, but it makes sense to me. It doesn't do anything. I mean, I think these pivot arms here, that sort of go a bit further in. These are called something because that's where the pivot point is. It's sort of when you pivot the back subframe, if you like, because it pivots there and there. They have to be as free as possible. And I've felt those on both sides. You probably find them on a tiny bit of grease in there, I would think. Tiny. So, or a little bit of perhaps oil rather than grease. I don't know. So I think I will lubricate those at some point. I'm not going to do it now. So that's set as it is. So I'm going to start with the supposed toe in, toe out caster camber. Now, the only thing that's going to be incorrect is the toe in and toe out. Caster and camber is set by this. I don't think you can move the bottom of the kingpin anyway. I don't know. I mean, that's something else. Not sure how caster can be adjusted. I'm just trying to think, because even that's solid, unless the hole is slightly eccentric on this at the end. But I'm pretty sure that is length, because if that doesn't change lengthwise, the width, then your camber can't be changed. On the Schumachers, anyone there that knows Schumachers will correct me there. Yeah, so the only thing I'm going to adjust at the moment, or look at, or check, I will check my camber. I've got a camber gauge. I'm also going to check my toe, and I've got a very crude way of doing that. I could use the camber gauge, but it's got too much overhang on the front there, the bumper and what the bumper's fitted to use it. The demonstration that they use here, I see if I can just show you this. So it shows you to put the car front end down. Well, definitely, and that's taking the front wing off of a Formula 1 style of car. There's definitely no way of doing that with this that I'm aware of, without dismantling too much of it. So what I'm going to do is a very crude way. I've got a small spirit level, and it's just a case of putting it up against, flush with the wheel. So when it's flush with the wheel.
Hang on a minute. Before I get into this part of the video, I decided that I had the proper tools to do the job. I forgot, so I was rabbiting on about how I'm going to measure it in some sort of Heath Robinson way, when in fact I had the proper tools. So
we'll give this a go. The Aromax Precision RC tool. I have used it before, but not on this. So we'll see how it goes. It's specifically designed for the 112 LMP scene. It's probably more suitable to being accurately set up. So let's put it on the car, and I'll show you what my findings are. Apologies at first off, I've got to hold the camera because where I've got this. I'm going to go through some bits and pieces with this, something I'm not too clear with. So this is the setup for the front geometry for one of these. It works on 1/10 touring car type vehicles and the 112 scene. So as you can see, it's fitted to the axles. It's got the uprights, the bearings from the wheels are in there. I know some people put their own bearings in, but like as in not the ones on the car, but that's all I've got at the moment. I think I've got actually, saying I think I've got other bearings, but they're quite good quality. But we'll see. That's by the by, isn't it? So they're on. We've got these downright forks here, and then the top plate. Now, one of the first things is, if I put this onto the plate, the bottom of these, they rub the bottom of the plate. So the problem is, these are lower than what the bottom where it sits. It's almost like it's got to sit higher or tilted, which you can't do. You know, if you look there, the bottom, it should, because it pivots, when you do the steering, it pivots on that back. See that bearing there, when you turn the steering, it pivots on that, but it's almost like it has to be higher at the front, like tilted up a little bit, so it does rest on that, but it doesn't. And the car is flat. I mean, it's not as flat as it can be on my setup thing, so I've had to overhang it on there a little bit. I don't understand, with all the videos I've seen with people using these, they don't have to do that. Or is it just this particular model? Aeromax, I don't know. It doesn't say. I've even watched the Aeromax video, and it doesn't mention that. Yeah, it just looks like it tilts forward. If it tilted back, so it rests on that rear bearing slightly more, it would take the bottom of these forks away from the bottom of the plate, so they sit slightly lower than what that does. But of course, when I turn it on lock to do the toe out on turns, which I have done, I've checked that, it hits the edge of the plate here. So is it wrong? Have I got something set wrong? It doesn't look wrong. You know, it could be the height of these, the kingpins. But they are on, they're on as much as they need to be on. The nuts aren't super tight, they're just sort of taking up the play. These can't go anywhere. They pivot there, that's it, end of. So they just sit, I don't know if you can see that. I don't know if that makes any sense there. But can you see where the bottom of these, like that, sits lower than the plate? So if I put it on the plate, they're on the floor. Are they just not suited to Schumachers? Can't be, surely. It's gonna be something I'm doing. It's almost like the, I'm just trying to think, because it wouldn't matter where the kingpin is, would it? I mean, we've got this set here now, so at the moment the radio gear is on, the servo is centered. So I have to apologise because I've got to hold the camera as well. So we're looking at camber. So I think it's difficult for me to see for the camera. So we've got like one line. So each line's a degree. So that's 1 degree negative camber, positive camber. Sorry, because it's the top of it's tilting in. That's 1 degree, and that's got none. So it's possible. How does that work then? Because that's got 1 degree, and the other one there is almost upright. I'm trying to think now while I'm filming. It means that something's not in the same place. It could be just some of the screws might be a bit tight on one side than the other to free it up. I'll have a look. I'll make some adjustments, and then I'll re-show you the camber. So all I did was I just loosened up the stub axle, the hub, just on the sort of the camber bar at the top. Just loosened it a bit, centered it, and put it back together, nipped it back up again. That still says 1 degree negative camber. So the top's leaning in. That one still says 0, so 0 degrees camber. Something's not set right. So what else could it be? So what do you think? I've put, I mean, these are not binding, nothing's binding. That's that side of that stub is definitely, it's give or take, that's 0 degrees. That one, it's definitely 1 line out. So something's not right. Does it matter? Well, that'll be alright. So I'm going to move on to something else now. We'll check the toe, and you can let me know your thoughts on that one. So we've got the car on its setup tool as usual. I've got the slider all the way over, and the servo is straight. I don't know if you can see that. The problem is now is whether you can see what I can see. All I can see, I'll tell you what, right, I'm a fucking clumsy doofus, fucking dick head. I lean on it and move it and touch it and fucking dickhead. Right, so that one there is pretty much straight. They're pointing ahead. We'll go the other side. Very, very slightly towing in. Now bearing in mind, I've set this up with a spirit level and by eye with no tools, so it's not bad, but I will wind that one in a little bit. So I'll just say so it's towing, I think I might go so it's more straight initially. I mean, race cars tend to tow out a little bit, but I'm just going to alter it so it's straight. So that side's done. That's pointing ahead. The other side, at least it's pointing ahead. So at least I know they're both straight. Now you've got tow out on turns. I'm not too happy with that because it hits. It's not as smooth as I want it to be because of this. They're too low. When it turns, it does hit this. I suppose it doesn't really matter if you take these off. So what I'm going to try and do, just basically just put them on the plate where they're dragging and then do the steering. We'll see if we go from there. So turning right full lock, they need to be, I don't know why it's clear, you can't see it on the camera, but I'm going to tell you it's like 15 degrees. So that wheel turns 15 degrees. We'll change the other side, so left. I'm looking at that, that's 10, that's 13. So I need my left turns on my trim to turn a bit more. So that's what I'm going to adjust. Okay, so that's done. I said trim, I meant, when I was looking at end points, I meant end points. So let me just show you. So that's going to be left. So turning left. So that's done. That's about, I keep knocking the table. right, don't put that on there. I'm going to fucking headbutt myself. Don't put that on there. Cut that out. So the turning degrees, I would call it toe out on turns. That's how I know it. I don't know what it's called in RC world, but when you're on full lock, the inside wheel turns more, doesn't it, generally speaking, on a race car. It just turns more, but the outside wheel shouldn't turn that much because you would never go around the corner because it will scurf. That's my understanding on real world stuff. Carts are typically like that. But they run a lot of caster on a cart, so that's why they're heavier on the steering and more direct. Very similar to some RC stuff, clearly. But I would call it toe out on turns. We've got like 15 degrees, according to the measurement there, on both sides. So that's equal. I'm quite happy with that. It's difficult to see on the camera because it's clear and it's a bit of a pain, but I've got to be able to look through it for this to work. So we've set that up. The camber's not quite right, but the toe is, and the turn. So I've set that up really well. I'm quite happy with that. I'm going to put the wheels back on because it's been powered on, just to make sure see if it tracks in a straight line indoors. And we'll go from there. I mean, that'll be pretty much it for now. It's ride height next. That'll be kind of the next bit of this video. Just to quickly show you, I've got it cut. I don't think it's tracking quite straight, which points to those front tyres. I will work on them. I'll take them off and just skim the larger one down a fraction just to take the edge off. But I'm going to go around, sort of just go a circle, just show you it does work. So this is going turning right. So go a little bit quicker, pushes on a little bit, polished floor, but it keeps, to be fair to you, when it turns, it's still turning on the same radius. That's turning right. I'll just turn the car around. So that's going left. I'm using sort of like the same lines on the tiles. And it's exactly the same, so it's not pushing, it's still hitting that same mark, give or take. Go a little bit quicker, it pushes on a little bit, it ease off. Yeah, so it's fine. So that's that. I've got to do the tyres. I should really do this before the ride heights, but it's not going to make a huge amount of difference. I'll see what I do. The ride heights are next. If I do the tyres in between, then I'll do that. But that'll be still part of this video. So stick around. Okay, so that's done. We've done a little bit of a run. That seemed quite successful. The turning circle left and right seem to be equal. Now I've got that correct, to the best of my knowledge. We're talking about ride height now. So that involves shimming the front, possibly. Or the rear axle has hangers to lower. So I need to see what's in there at the moment. I think it could be 0, not too sure. But at the moment, using my little trusty measuring thing, this goes almost all the way under. That's currently about 5mm. In the front, I think it's just a little 3.9, so a little under 4mm. My way of thinking, I'm going to put this down to, I'm going to try and put it down to 3mm. I don't want to go too far. Yeah, maybe lower the rear to somewhere around 4mm. Might leave the front. I might go, if I can, slightly below 4mm, at 3 something. Don't know, but I've got to check the rear hangers and find out what's in there. I've got all my stuff here, so that's all my shims at the front. I've got some hardware there that I've got spare. They're the shims. I believe they're the ride height shims. And in here, I've got I've got the springs, also got kingpin shims. So we can raise and lower the kingpin at the front. We've got the springs, which I've left as standard, and we've got the rear axle hangers. So I'm going to see, I've got them labelled here, so I don't quite know. Need to see what's in the car before I can change it. So I'm going to try perhaps the next one down. So I've got to take the rear axle out, which is no big problem, to be honest. Right, leave that with me. That's what I had in 0.50. The thickest bit was at the bottom, so that means the axle was higher, so it was lowering the the ride height. You can turn these round, of course, so it raises so the rear axle and lower the ride height, and if you lower it in the hangers, it raises the ride height. And that was 0.50. So with that in mind, I'm probably best to go down to the next available one, looking at my bits and pieces, 0.25. That's why I will do it. So I'm going to try that, put it back together and see how it goes, not forgetting, of course, the shims. I took the rear, right, so I took the hangers out. It was 0.50. I put in 0.75. I then changed it to 0.1. It's gone down now to about 4.3 mil at the back, according to my measurer, and it's still 4.4 mil at the front. So it's lower at the front than it is at the back. I might put a little shim in there just to get it a little fraction lower at the front and call it a day at that. Got a couple of bits that I've just turned up from Schumacher. Body post trimmer. I've got some thread locks, some weak thread locks, and then a new product, a couple of screws which I'm gonna maybe put in, that I'm gonna change. I don't know yet. But there's the body post. So they'll get trimmed off. And there's that. It's called. It's actually called low strength thread locker. So I'll use that probably. Don't know, metal into metal. I'll have to see, but yeah, I don't want to sort of put things in that. There's a lot of metal to metal actually on this kit, which will make the use of that quite prominent. So yes. Anyway, let me just sort the front out, see if I can get a shim under there, or two, maybe one, and we'll probably put the shell on, and then maybe we'll mark the body posts, trim them off. But we're getting very close. I haven't done the rear, one of the wires here yet for the motor. I mustn't forget that. It's bound to come off when it get in the sort of the heat of the moment. All right, okay, so let me know. The thing is though, if you say to me, oh, you've got to put it at 3 mil and it's at 4.2, I'll probably leave it for now. But you can advise me anyway. Again, Lewis and so many people have said, is it drift craze? Usual suspects that give me all the good ideas and great advice, which I follow. You can tell me you need to stick a banana up your arse and I'll do it. No, I'm going to cut that out. Right, let me put some shims in and I'll be back. Okay, that was a little bit more difficult than I was expecting. Actually trying to find out where those shims go. There's so many shims when you start looking into it. Those bits that go underneath the suspension underneath there. There's shims underneath the rear pivot plate in the back there. I haven't got any. I have got some, but I'm putting it in. There's spacers and shims at the top and bottom of the wishbones. Sorry, these sort of the kingpin. There's shims in the back axle, which I knew about. There's shims you can put on the front wheels for width. I mean, these do, I would think, make a difference. So I've put the front shims in. I think they're 0.2 millimeter, and it transpires that this corner 3.3 mil, and this corner 3.1 mil. So there's a 0.2 mil difference. I think the main culprit for that is going to be these tyres. They're sort of like coned, I've noticed. There's more meat on this side of the wheel tyre than here. I'm going to have to trim them down a little bit. If I take them down, it's going to lower it even more. I think, is it 3 mils the limit? Shouldn't go much lower than that. You should run them as low as possible. Like anything, any racing car needs to be as low as possible without grounding out. It does look super low. I don't know what the front's like. Can't see the front anyway because of the bumper. So I took the bumper off. But the side, I mean that side there, that's 4 mil. And I'll just put it underneath this side. I mean that's 3.6 according to that. So the car is actually sitting pissed. So that can only be the tyre diameter as well. That makes it, of course, is anything different on that, it's going to make a massive difference. So I think for now, as far as my setup process, that'll do. I'm going to do the wheels and tyres. I keep saying wheels and tyres, but at the end of the day, the foams, I'm going to trim them down again. So I think they're slightly coned. So they start off thin and they work their way outwards here. I'm not sure why that is. Is it my equipment? The way I've done it? So I'm going to have to be careful. I'm going to trim these off again and try and get them squarer and get more accurate reading. Then put the wheels back on and then do another measurement. I'm not going to do much more adjustments for now. I mean, it's not, I think I'm pretty much kind of where I need to be for my race meeting in 2 weeks. I'm going to get down there next week anyway and go from there. So there might be another video, just a sort of a summary video before I go. That'll be it really until I'm sort of there. I might film a little bit of the practice when I'm there. If I can get a go myself, I might take just some basics with me. I don't think I'm going to take all my tools. Just take my car, radio and battery and see if I can get a lap in or just something. But we'll go from there. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. It's a bit here and there as I was finding stuff out. I appreciate you guys watching. Like, comment and subscribe, and I shall see you on the next video. Thank you very much and goodbye for now.